Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring a connection you might not expect.
Oh.
How geography and geology have surprisingly shaped human history.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll be looking at Chapter 8 from this book that argues that, where and when are just as crucial as what when it comes to understanding, historical events.
Interesting.
Get this.
Outside.
We'll even uncover how ancient geology played a role in Donald Trump's 2020 election loss.
Wow. That's a pretty bold claim.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, but
I'm intrigued.
our expert is going to walk us through it, and hopefully by the end of this deep dive, we'll all see the connections.
That's right. It's fascinating how often we overlook the influence of the physical world on human events, right?
Yeah.
We tend to focus on the human actors and all the things that they're doing.
Right.
But we forget that the stage on which all of this unfolds is just as important.
Totally. It's like we forget that history isn't just made by people.
Right.
It's made on the Earth. And the Earth itself has a story to tell.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's jump into this concept of space-time,
Okay.
but not in a sci-fi way.
No. We're not talking about wormholes and time travel.
Right.
We're talking about recognizing that events don't occur in a vacuum, right? The physical context, the geography, even the geology shapes the possibilities and limitations for the people who live in a particular place and time.
Okay, so to make this more concrete, can you give me an example of how a geographic event sparked a chain of historical reactions?
Sure. So consider Britain becoming an island.
Okay.
That separation from mainland Europe had massive ripple effects throughout history.
Right.
It wasn't just a one-time event. It led to the development of a powerful navy, which in turn created a huge dependence on timber for shipbuilding.
This is where the story of the pine tree riot comes in, right?
Exactly.
It was all about timber.
Precisely the scarcity of timber in Britain led to policies of reserving trees in the American colonies for the Royal Navy, even marking them with the King's broad arrow.
What?
This ignited resentment among the colonists who relied on those same trees. And you can trace a line from that resentment to the American Revolution.
Wow.
All sparked by that initial geographic event of Britain becoming an island.
That's incredible. So one little thing
Yeah.
leads to all these other things.
Exactly. It's a chain reaction.
Yeah, that's an incredible example of how a seemingly simple geographic shift can have ripple effects across centuries. But it's not just about large-scale historical events, is it?
No.
Even our own bodies carry evidence of how the physical environment has shaped us.
Absolutely. We are not separate from nature.
Yeah.
Our history is interwoven with the history of Earth itself.
Okay.
For example, think about fingerprints.
Okay.
Those unique patterns on our fingertips.
I've always wondered, why do we have fingerprints?
Well, there are many theories, but one suggests that they might have evolved to help our primate ancestors grip branches better, providing an advantage for survival in an arboreal environment.
So climbing trees,
Exactly.
to get away from danger?
To get food to move around, yeah.
Okay.
Even our fingernails, potentially remnants of claws, show how our bodies adapted as our ancestors spent less time in trees.
That's so interesting. So even something as small as a fingerprint can tell a story about our evolutionary past.
Exactly.
And I've heard that even plate tectonics,
Yes.
the movement of those massive earth plates, had a huge impact on human evolution.
It really did. The formation of the Tibetan Plateau millions of years ago dramatically altered weather patterns drying out East Africa,
Okay.
which fragmented ape habitats and forced them to adapt.
So they had to evolve.
Yeah, and this geographic isolation caused these populations to evolve along different paths, eventually leading to the emergence of our human lineage.
Wow. So the movement of the earth literally shaped the trajectory of human evolution.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you wonder,
What's that?
if the geography had been different, would ancient civilizations have developed in the same way? Take ancient Greece with its scattered city-states. Would that same political structure have emerged if they weren't surrounded by water and mountains?
That's an excellent question. It's hard to say for sure, of course, but geography undeniably plays a role in shaping the possibilities for human societies.
Okay, so this brings us to some key concepts
Yeah.
that help us understand the interplay between geography and history.
Okay.
Can you break down some of the big ones for our listener?
Absolutely. One crucial concept is the lottery of Earth. This recognizes that resources, fertile land, favorable climates aren't distributed evenly.
Right.
Some societies simply have geographic advantages that others don't, and that shapes their development.
So some societies got lucky with their geographic location,
You could say that, yeah.
while others got dealt a tougher hand.
Right.
It seems almost unfair, doesn't it?
It certainly highlights the role of chance in history.
Yeah.
And then there's path dependency. The idea that past decisions, particularly how humans interact with their environment, can lock us into certain trajectories.
Can you give our listener an example of that? I'm having trouble picturing what you mean by locked in.
Sure, consider a city like Winchester in England.
Okay.
Its location was determined thousands of years ago by an Iron Age fort.
Wow.
That decision made in a vastly different era continues to influence the city's layout and development even today.
So it's like the ghost of geography past still shaping our present.
In a way, yes.
And there was one more concept, something about space-time.
Yes, human space-time contingency. This idea highlights that geographical features only become significant when they intersect with human needs and technologies at a particular point in time.
I think I'm starting to see the connection. It's not just about where something is, it's about when it becomes important to humans.
Exactly. Take Saudi Arabian oil, for instance.
Hmm.
It existed for millions of years, but only became a major factor in global politics and economics with the invention of the internal combustion engine.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So the significance of a geographic feature can change drastically depending on human innovation and needs.
Precisely. And that brings us to a tricky topic, the relationship between geography and the often controversial idea of geographical determinism.
Oh, yes. This is where things get a little sensitive.
Yeah.
It's the idea that geography determines everything about a society, right?
Right.
Even things like intelligence or cultural development.
Exactly. And that idea has been misused to justify racism and colonialism in the past.
It's a slippery slope
It is.
to start going down.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a dangerous and harmful oversimplification to claim that geography dictates everything about a society.
It really is.
So how do we navigate this? We've seen all these examples of how geography does matter,
Right.
but it's clearly not the whole story.
Right.
Where do we draw the line?
That's the key. It's about finding the balance. We need to acknowledge the influence of geography without falling into deterministic traps. Recognizing how the environment shapes possibilities and limitations for societies is very different from saying it dictates everything about them.
So it's like saying geography sets the stage. But it's humans who write and act in the play.
That's a great analogy. It emphasizes the agency of humans within the context of their environment. And in fact, acknowledging the role of geography can be anti-racist because it offers an alternative to those harmful explanations based on supposed racial superiority.
That makes a lot of sense. By understanding how geography can create advantages or disadvantages, we get a clearer picture of historical inequality.
Exactly. And speaking of advantages and disadvantages, remember that surprising connection between ancient geology and the 2020 election.
Oh, yeah, that's what really hooked me on this whole topic. You're telling me there's a link between Donald Trump's election loss and something that happened during the dinosaur era.
There is, and it all comes back to human space-time contingency. The idea that geography only becomes significant when it intersects with human needs at a particular time. To understand this connection, we'll trace a chain of events starting millions of years ago.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's rewind back to the age of the dinosaurs.
Imagine an ancient inland sea teeming with tiny phytoplankton. When these phytoplankton died, they sank to the seafloor and over eons contributed to the formation of incredibly fertile soil in what is now the American South.
Okay, so we've got fertile soil,
Yeah.
but what does that have to do with Donald Trump millions of years later?
Well, that fertile soil, fast forward to the 1800s, would become ideal for cotton plantations, fueling the tragic system of slavery and the forced migration of Africans to a region known as the Black Belt.
So the geography itself played a role in shaping the demographics of the American South.
Exactly. And this is where we start to see the connection to the 2020 election. Many descendants of those enslaved people still live in those areas that overwhelmingly voted for the Democratic candidate.
This is where my mind starts to get blown.
Yeah.
So you're saying the distribution of votes and therefore the outcome of the election was influenced by the location of that ancient sea and the fertile soil it created.
In a way, yes, Georgia, a state with a significant black belt population, played a key role in Biden's victory and the Democrats gaining control of the Senate.
Wow.
It's a fascinating example of how seemingly unconnected events can have profound impacts across vast stretches of time.
Okay, We've covered a lot of ground already, from British timber to ancient seas and modern elections, and we've still got so much more to explore. So why don't we take a moment to let our listener digest all this mind-blowing information, and we'll pick up this deep dive with part 2.
It's remarkable to think that events millions of years in the making can have such a profound impact on modern politics, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you realize that we're not just living in the present, you know? We're carrying the weight of all that history, geological and human, with us.
This is precisely why understanding these deep connections is so crucial. It allows us to see the world and our place within it with more clarity.
So we've talked about how geography can influence the rise and fall of civilization,
Right.
and even sway election outcomes.
Yeah.
But what about the impact on an individual level? How does all this play out in our own lives?
That's where it gets really interesting. Think about your own life, where you live, the resources available to you, the climate you experience. All of these factors, shaped by geography and geology, have influenced the choices you've made and the opportunities you've had.
So even though we might not be consciously aware of it, we're constantly interacting with the physical world in ways that are shaping our lives.
Absolutely, and it raises a fascinating question.
Yeah.
What seemingly insignificant geographical or geological features might be shaping your life right now?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It makes me think about those ancient phytoplankton. Who would have guessed they'd be playing a role in modern politics? Maybe there's something right under our noses influencing our lives in ways we haven't even considered.
Exactly. That's the power of understanding these connections. It opens up a whole new way of seeing the world and our place in it.
Okay, we've explored some dense concepts so far.
Yeah, we have.
Space-time, the lottery of Earth path dependency, even the Cretaceous connection to the 2020 election. It's a lot to take in.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of everything. The key takeaway here is that we're products of both human decisions and the physical world.
Yeah.
To understand the complexities of history and even our own lives, we need to recognize that interplay.
It's like we're standing at the intersection of geography and human history.
Yeah.
And suddenly we can see how it's all connected.
That's what makes this so fascinating. It's a reminder that there's always more to learn, more connections to uncover. The Earth is a dynamic and ever-changing stage, and we're all players in this grand drama.
I love that. And as much as I'd love to keep going, I think we should give our listener another moment to ponder these fascinating connections. We'll be right back to wrap up this deep dive into how geography and geology have shaped the world we live in. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the surprising ways geography and geology have shaped human history.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
How we've seen how the Earth's history is woven into our own.
Absolutely. And for me, the most striking takeaway is that we're not just passive observers in this grand story, right?
Right.
We're active participants, shaping and being shaped by the world around us.
That's a crucial point. And with that realization comes a certain responsibility. If we truly understand how geography and geology have influenced the course of history and continue to shape our present, we can use that knowledge to make more informed decisions about the future.
So it's not just about understanding the past.
Right.
It's about using that knowledge to create a better future.
Exactly. We can't change the lottery of Earth, as we discussed, but we can change how we respond to it. We can work to mitigate the negative impacts of geography and geology, and we can harness their power for the benefit of all humankind.
It's like we've been given this incredible map that reveals the hidden pathways of history and how they've led us to where we are today.
Yeah.
Now it's up to us to chart a course for the future.
What a powerful way to put it. And perhaps the most important lesson we can take away from this deep dive is the importance of perspective. By understanding the influence of geography and geology, we gain a wider lens through which to view the world, one that encompasses both the human and the natural realms.
It's about seeing the bigger picture, understanding the interconnectedness of everything, and recognizing that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
Indeed. And that realization can be both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it reminds us that we're not the sole authors of our destiny, and empowering because it reveals the vast potential for collaboration and innovation when we work in harmony with the forces of nature.
So what does all of this mean for you, dear listener? It means that you have the power to shape the future not just through your actions, but through your understanding of the world around you.
Pay attention to the subtle ways in which geography and geology influence your life. Ask questions, seek connections, and never underestimate the power of the Earth to shape our destinies.
Maybe you'll uncover surprising connections of your own. Perhaps you'll even discover that a seemingly insignificant feature of your local landscape has had a ripple effect across time, shaping the world in ways you never imagined.
It's a thrilling prospect, isn't it? The world is full of hidden stories waiting to be discovered, so keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the surprising ways geography and geology have shaped human history. We hope you've enjoyed the journey and gained some new insights.
Thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those perspectives wide open.
And don't forget to share your own aha moments with us.
Yeah, we'd love to hear.
We'd love to hear how these deep dives spark new ideas and connections for our listeners.
Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating interplay between the human and natural worlds. There's always more to discover.